Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aisha and you're watching Samaa News. Here are today's headlines. Pakistan has announced a partial airspace closure near the Indian border for the next 2 days, citing possible Indian military exercises. According to the notice to airmen, the closure will remain in effect from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on both days, affecting routes in the Karachi and Lahore flight regions. The temporary restrictions are precautionary measures to ensure flight safety during periods of heightened military activity. Turkey has signed a $10.7 billion deal with Britain to purchase 20 Eurofighter Typhoon jets, marking a major boost in defence ties between the two NATO allies. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Tayyip Erdogan finalised the agreement during their meeting in Ankara. US President Donald Trump has met Japan's Emperor Naruhito at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo as part of his Asia tour focused on trade and defence. Trump will hold key talks with Japan's new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, on Tuesday, after announcing several trade and mineral deals earlier in Malaysia. Meanwhile, President Trump says he had a good meeting with Brazilian President Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva at the ASEAN summit in Malaysia. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump called Lula a very vigorous guy, but said he's unsure about a possible deal. The US recently imposed 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods over the sentencing of former President Jair Bolsonaro. US President Donald Trump has ruled out running for the vice presidency in the 2028 US election, an approach some of his supporters have floated to allow the Republican president to serve an additional term in office. The remarks were Trump's latest on the subject, which he has teased in public remarks, and with Trump 2028 hats he hands out at the White House. No one may be elected to the US presidency a third time, according to the 22nd Amendment of the US Constitution. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says his government will close hotels housing asylum seekers, blaming the previous government for what he called a huge mess. Speaking in Turkey, he said claims are being processed faster and deportations are more efficient. A new report says costs for asylum housing have tripled. On the other hand, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says he's ready to meet Donald Trump for trade talks whenever the US president is prepared. His remarks come days after Trump cut off trade discussions, angered by a Canadian political ad quoting Ronald Reagan's warning against tariffs. The US has since imposed an extra 10% tariff on Canadian goods. Carney will also meet Chinese President Xi Jinping this week on the sidelines of the APEC summit, where all eyes now turn to whether Washington and Ottawa will thaw their trade freeze. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she and President Trump have agreed to extend a looming trade deadline by a few weeks to resolve pending issues. The US had paused tariff hikes on Mexican goods, set to rise to 30% this week. Sheinbaum told reporters the two sides are close to settling 54 trade barriers. President Asif Ali Zardari and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif have urged the global community to help resolve the Kashmir dispute under UN resolutions and the will of the Kashmiri people. In messages on Kashmir Black Day, both leaders condemned India's occupation of the valley. President Zardari says lasting peace in South Asia depends on a just settlement of the issue. Meanwhile, hundreds rallied in Islamabad to mark Kashmir Black Day, voicing solidarity with the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and demanding implementation of UN resolutions. Federal Minister for Kashmir Affairs, Amir Muqam, told the crowd that peace in the region depends on enforcing UN resolutions. The day is observed across Pakistan and Azad Kashmir as a reminder of the decades-old dispute. 2 women were killed and 1 person injured in an overnight Ukrainian drone attack on Russian-controlled Donetsk. Moscow-installed authorities say the strike set a residential building on fire, killing women aged 72 and 98. A 19-year-old woman was hospitalized. Ukraine has not commented on the incident. Also, at least 4 migrants died after their boat sank off the Greek island of Lesbos. The Coast Guard says 7 others were rescued while the search continues for possible missing passengers. It's the second deadly migrant incident near Lesbos this month. China says it hopes the United States can meet it halfway ahead of an expected meeting between Presidents Xi Jinping and Donald Trump at the APEC summit in South Korea this week. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told US Secretary of State Marco Rubio that the two leaders' mutual respect remains the most valuable asset in their ties. The State Bank of Pakistan has kept the policy interest rate unchanged at 11% for the next 1.5 months. The decision was announced after a Monetary Policy Committee meeting in Karachi and reflects a cautious approach to balance inflation control with economic recovery. The central bank cited rising inflation, flood-related damages, and IMF guidelines as key factors. Officials said the move aims to stabilize prices and support growth amid continued pressure on foreign reserves and the trade balance. While the state bank maintains its cautious stance, Pakistan's reserves are set to strengthen with new inflows. Saudi Arabia has not only agreed to provide a $1 billion oil facility this fiscal year, but has also rolled over $5 billion in existing deposits with the state bank. According to the Finance Ministry, the oil financing arrangement will ease Pakistan's payment pressures, while the rollover will help maintain foreign exchange reserves. Officials said the deposits will mature between December 2025 and June 2026 and carry a 4% interest rate. Meanwhile, China has carried out a final rehearsal for its Shenzhou 21 crewed space mission at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. The exercise covered pre-launch checks, ignition, and spacecraft separation, confirming all systems are ready. Astronauts have completed training and will now undergo final health checks before liftoff. Argentine President Javier Milei's party has cruised to victory in midterm legislative elections as voters handed him a mandate to keep pushing through his radical overhaul of the economy, despite widespread discontent with his deep austerity measures. A relief to Milei, whose poll numbers had sagged in recent weeks. The results are also likely to please US President Donald Trump, whose administration had faced criticism after providing Argentina with a hefty financial bailout. And Tunisian director Koutha Benhania's film, The Voice of Hind Rajab, has premiered in Gaza. Screened amid rubble in Deir el-Balah, the film opened the Gaza International Festival for Women's Cinema, coinciding with Palestinian National Women's Day. And Afghan women have returned to the international stage through FIFA's new Women's Unites tournament in Morocco. Playing as Afghan Women United, the refugee team, made up of players who fled the Taliban's ban on women's sports, faced Chad in their first match, losing 6-1, but scoring a historic opening goal. That's all for now. For more updates, visit www.samaa.tv. Thank you for watching Samaa News.